Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic. What's the scariest true story you've heard or told? There have been several confirmed cases in a few different countries of people living in other people's houses unbeknownst to them. I believe one case went on for a couple of years. The intruder would wait until the homeowner would go to work and then sneak out and steal small amounts of food as not to be noticed. Well, eventually the homeowner did notice and couldn't figure out where his food was going, so he set up a hidden camera to record it. I can only imagine how scary it would have been to come home from work one night and sit down to watch the video, skipping through hours of stillness, to suddenly come across a person crawling out of your attic. And then the slow realization that that person is still in your house at that moment. And then the retroactive fear of thinking back to all the times you laid awake at night and heard a noise, which you just dismissed as coming from the pipes or the old wooden beams, but actually it was a fucking person just above you. It gives me the heebie-jeebies every time I think about it. Can confirm, I currently live beneath the floor of a family unbeknownst to them. I live in an apartment. The family I live below don't know I'm here, but the one below me sure does. Clogging today. Clogging forever. This happened to me. I was living in a sorority house with 20 other women. The house was super old and was in terrible condition. The basement had items from residents that lived there years prior, but never took their stuff. A guy was living in the basement for who knows how long. He was smart to pick our house. There were so many people that we would not notice things looking out of place because we assumed one of the women in the house just moved it /took it /ate it. One day, a girl was doing her laundry in the basement and she noticed a bed set up behind the piles of crap people left. Then she noticed the man. He said he was dating one of the girls and was just drunk and got mixed up and landed up in the basement accidentally. Anyways, she called campus police and they came to investigate and told us that he had probably been down there for a while and he was using the basement door to get in and out of the house. I don't remember if they caught him. This was about 10 years ago, so I don't remember all the details, but it was scary. There was a frat house at my school that had a room full of bunk beds that they used for people who were too drunk after parties to crash in. A homeless guy somehow found out about it and would use the window to climb up and down the fire escape, then sleep in there at night. He was there for months and nobody ever really questioned a random guy hanging around, so he would join in during parties, take showers, grab food from the fridge, even sit in when they were watching football. They finally figured it out when everyone left for winter break and he was still there in the house every day. If anyone is staying in someone's attic right now waiting for them to leave, they are fucked because no one is leaving their house often anymore. I'm so hungry. Edit, thanks for the award, kind stranger. Now I'm just thinking of someone waking up to the stench of death in their home and finding someone who starved to death in their attic or walls since they could come out for food. I met a guy who had been traveling Australia with a couple friends, hitchhiking around as many of us had done. One of his friend told him they were near his distant uncle's house, whom he'd never met before. He got a phone number from a family member and, as they had hoped, the uncle offered them a place to stay. He picked them up in town and drove them out to his rural property way out in the bush. They said he seemed like a pretty normal guy, friendly and cheery. When it was time to set up a place to sleep, the uncle took them to a closet that was totally full of sleeping bags and bedrolls. They didn't think much of it at the time and all grabbed a kit and set up on the living room floor. They stayed a couple days and nothing out of the ordinary happened, and afterwards the uncle drove them to the bus station and they continued on their way. About a year later that man was arrested and charged with several counts of murder. He was the man who was picking up young hitchhiking backpackers and slaughtering them. The guy who told me this story was 100% certain he had slept in the sleeping bag of one of his victims. I guess he didn't kill the guys cause one of them was his nephew. Or because people knew they were there. One day as a kid I was exploring the forests near our house with my cousin. The forest was on a hill, but there were several craters there because of bombs that were dropped there during the World Wars, Germany. One day we saw a backpack at the bottom of one. We tried to climb down, but it was kinda steep and slippery, so we didn't want to risk falling. We planned on returning later with a rope, and went home. The next day news story was that there was a backpack found with the remains of a girl, in that forest. A guy walking his dog found it, after the dog wouldn't stop barking and going crazy at the edge of the crater, while staring at the backpack. We stopped exploring the forests after. Edit, English is hard sometimes. You just got saved from being haunted by a memory for your whole fucking life. So grateful for that. The bag even looked like it hasn't been there that long, still looked new. That's why we wanted to get it. We thought that maybe someone accidentally dropped it in there to think that the person that dumped it there could have been still nearby. Lived W3 other girls sophomore year of college. All three took off early for spring break, leaving me alone in the house. First night alone, I heard someone bang on my front door at 2 a.m. Then I hear more knocks at the back door. A man yells "Boulder police, open the door." When I didn't, I heard body slams against both doors. Soon I hear "Little girl, open the door, we know you're alone." At this point I'm so scared I keep accidentally dialing 611 instead of 911. When I eventually do get the police, cars roll up, thankfully, just minutes later. Officers have 4 boys from our school hockey team face down on the grass. I had to file restraining orders against them, and the kicker one lived across the street from me and we'd never spoken a single word before then. Holy shit. What was the aftermath? What happened to them? The usual. Frat parties, graduation. Perhaps a law career, then into politics. Jesus, other than restraining orders, what punishments did they get? Well, all of these stories are scary, but this one gave me bad goosebumps. I'm so glad nothing happened, and so angry that 4 college-age adult males had the audacity to do this to you. This makes me sick. Again, glad you're okay and nothing happened. When I worked in healthcare, I had a patient who got a sinus infection. He stopped taking his antibiotics after a few days because he felt better. His sinus infection came back with a vengeance. When he got to the emergency department, he was presenting with stroke symptoms. The infection had spread to his cranial cavity. There was so much pus that it was twisting his brain. No one thought he would survive the surgery. The family was advised to expect the worst. Amazingly, he actually survived. He ended up needing 3 more surgeries to wash out and spent almost 2 months in the hospital. Take your full dose of antibiotics, people. This happened to a colleague, except he lay for 4 days semi-conscious on the floor of his house until another colleague went to look for him. He very nearly died. That is terrifying. Good on your other colleague for going to check on him. Man, now I have a new fear. The Raya Marokwi story: a young lady had an affair with her boss in the 1960s, got pregnant. After threatening to tell her boss wife, she was killed by her boss, who then put her body in an industrial barrel. He hid the barrel in his house for years and none of the various owners opened it due to the weight. Finally one guy decided to dispose of it in the IoTs, and when he opened it he saw it contained something. An investigation traced the barrel and girl back to the man, who then killed himself before police could come arrest him after confirming he was the father of the unborn baby via DNA. The lady's mother was in her late 80s when she was told her missing daughter was finally found. She claims that she had been having dreams about her daughter being inside a metal container for years after she had gone missing. Seen that forensics file episode a time or two. Other details: IRC is he was the owner of some sort of textile factory and she was a worker there. Dude got the metal drum from work, put the body in it, filled and sealed it, and didn't realize how heavy it would be and ended up storing it under a crawl space on his deck / porch. Home passed through another owner or two before the barrel was discovered. Reckless, just decided to sell the house and leave the body there. I was in class in 10th grade and the teacher was asking everyone how their weekend was. The quietest girl in the class spoke and while breaking down in tears said she was on a trip in the mountains with her mom. They made a stop for some reason and she looked over the cliff and saw an overturned vehicle with a dead family scattered about. I recently saw an accident where the man was getting chest compressions in the middle of the highway. I really regret looking. I just keep picturing how much his chest was depressing, knowing his ribs were breaking. I was driving home from work one afternoon and came across an accident. I was one of the first people there. I got out of my car and ran over. Broken glass everywhere and there was a limp body hanging out of the driver's side window and a puddle of blood collecting under his head. I called the police but they were just pulling up as I did. They asked me to leave, but I never found out if the driver made it. A bit of a traumatizing experience. Back in the Soviets, some friends and I planned a camping trip to northern Cali for a long weekend. We packed up and headed north on the highway. Somewhere around Bakersfield we picked up a hitchhiker headed to Cavill, who we dropped off before heading further north. So we get to our campsite and start getting things set up. My GF finds a note tucked into the top of her backpack. It read, "I could have killed all of you. None of us slept that night." Maybe he was just warning you against picking up random hitchhikers. Probably. This going to straight up offend people, but the 50s, 60s, and 70s are straight up peak serial killer paradise because of the sheer stupidity of people. Literally serving themselves on a silver platter to murderers. I've seen so many documentaries involving these decades of people just dandily hopping into serial killers' cars. This was also the age of idiotic parents letting random pedophiles have a go at their kids. Look up January Broberg, a girl, now adult woman, was abducted and raped and the parents let it happen. There's a documentary about her on Netflix. It's infuriating how so many people failed her. It happened in the 70s. I used to be someone who stopped to help people on the side of the road. Mainly because I was stranded on the side of the highway, 10 miles from the nearest exit, and I swore that if anyone stopped to help me, I'd do the same for others. Someone did stop, so I kept my promise. Had a few grateful people over the years. More often, as cell phones became a thing, people's answer would be that they are fine, someone is on the way. Sometimes they need a jump start or something. As I got older, I realized how stupid that was. I'm an unarmed solo woman traveler. Ted Bundy would have loved my dumbass. Luckily now, with cell phones, it is rare that someone is truly stranded, so I don't have any guilt about driving past. Then I read a story about a grandmother and her 5-year-old granddaughter who were raped and beaten to death, all while the people laughed at them for being stupid enough to help them, and that was the end for me. Horrible nightmares from that story, just horrible. Edit to clarify, that last was a newspaper story, not a no sleep or something. A real event that happened on this planet. So hell yes, it gave me nightmares. Okay, that last paragraph is just all sorts of fucked up,